Welcome back, Trade Crew. And tonight I am joined by a controls mechanical engineer. This was an awesome conversation. I had a lot of fun doing it. I hope you guys enjoyed as much as I did and that you're able to walk away with a little bit more information about where the future of smart controls are going in our industry. So let's get it, y'all. What's up, Trade Crew? Welcome back to the HVAC R&D podcast, the home of the Trade Crew, the voice of distribution, contractors, and manufacturers. We're rolling into Q2 with some serious momentum, and the show is growing bigger than ever. The HVAC R&D Substack newsletter is officially live. The Ramblin' Rhino column is back in full force with multiple fresh articles dropping every single week, and the newly relaunched resource hub at hvacrnd.com is now going to be your go-to spot for tools, products, partners, and insights built to help you grow in the trades. So if you believe in real conversations from the truck to the boardroom, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe to the show. Don't forget to subscribe to the newsletter so you never miss the conversations, columns, and resources built for the people keeping this industry moving. Big shout out to our Q2 partners making it all happen: Diversitech, LiveSwitch, RLS Rapid Locking System, True Nature Meats Company, Residio, and Mon Hummel. Now lock in, turn it up, and let's get into another great conversation right here on HVAC R&D. So what's up, Trade Crew? Welcome back to the HVAC R&D podcast. I'm your host, Rhydon Atzenhoffer, and today joining us from Verdant, I have Rami Noueir, and we're going to step into the commercial and controls side of the trade a little bit with him today. And he is a mechanical engineer working at the intersection of HVAC, energy management, and smart building technology, helping drive efficiency in multifamily housing, student housing, and large-scale residential and commercial applications. And if you've ever wondered where thermostats, controls, and data are taking this industry, this is your episode. So Rami, welcome to the show. Thanks for spending some time with me today.
Right on. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to this.
No, I think it'll be a good time. I like to usually get this show started, kind of let people know a little bit about who you are and where you are from personally. So, outside of HVAC, I know we've talked about in our discovery call some golf, some food, some travel, a little soccer in there. Who are you outside of HVAC?
Feels like HVAC has been my life recently.
Welcome to the club.
So I was actually born in Egypt, grew up for the first couple of years of my life there, then moved to Montreal, Canada at a very young age. Got into engineering for my love of math, physics, and then, when you graduate from engineering, especially here in Montreal, there's a huge aviation presence. Decided not to go down that route. Wasn't really for me, so I ended up working at Verdant with in HVAC controls. Other than that, kind of like you mentioned, huge sports guy, big soccer fan, trying to be a golfer. I can't claim to be a golfer just yet. And huge traveler for food. Food is the guide to where I travel to next.
We'll talk golf first. Whenever I go play golf, I make sure to get my greens fees worth of strokes. That's the level of golf I am. And most people in HVAC, if you're shooting, under 80, are you really in HVAC? Because most of us don't have time to go play golf that much. But born in Egypt, soccer guy. I'm a Liverpool fan, so I'm assuming there's some Mohamed Salah allegiance there, maybe just a little bit.
Yeah.
He's had a bit of a down, rough year. I think he's going to move on after this one, but I don't know where he's going to go.
Yeah, it's a tricky one for me because I'm a lifelong Arsenal fan, but there's that always conflict that Mohamed Salah does amazing when he plays against us, but I do have that Egyptian tie to him, so it kind of stings, but it doesn't at the same time. But yeah, no, who knows where he'll end up next year, but he's definitely had a great career there, to say the least.
I feel at times I'm like a bit of a closeted Arsenal fan, a little bit. I've always had great respect for Mikel Arteta, even though he played for Everton. But I've always thought he was a genuine player, and I always respected his ability. When he got into coaching, I was curious how long it was going to take him to go somewhere and make a big impact. I really didn't expect Arsenal to be his first job. and I didn't expect him to be given the time he's been given to actually do something with it. So very impressed.
Yeah.
I know he did not school the teacher this past weekend though.
No,
He's
no,
still he's still under tutelage apparently from old Pep.
unfortunately, but it's I'm starting to sound like an old Liverpool fan when I start saying this year might be our year, but
Oh.
it, I'm crossing my fingers. Last weekend wasn't a good one, but there's still 3 months left in the season here, so hoping he finds a way to bring a trophy home for once.
No, you guys are due. We were long due, and you guys are due again. I will say that.
Yeah.
Um, so back a little bit towards education and HVAC. I know you've got a mechanical engineering background. You've told me you're working on your MBA. What really led you to go down the engineering path?
Both my parents are engineers, and growing up in quite a traditional Egyptian household, it wasn't really much of a choice. It was more of you know, it's what the family's known for. It's what you like to do, math, physics. So ended up just working through that. While I was doing my undergrad, we have what we call a co-op system here. So I ended up doing a few internships in a lot of different fields, heavy industrial valves, aviation. And when I was getting down to the actual internship, I realized that I need a little bit more of a human interaction of it. I don't want to be kind of just locked in and looking at spec sheets and math for hours and graphs for hours and hours and hours a day. So this is where the sales part comes in. I ended up finding a good mix in terms of both, where I still get to apply my engineering background, my technical knowledge, and at the same time, have that human connection, be on the phone with people most of the day. So that's how I ended up kind of where I am today.
What introduced you to HVAC? I know obviously you said you did some industrial valves, you did some aviation, but how did that become the one you stuck with outside of the fact that in HVAC a lot of times we get to have a bit more of that forward facing customer relationship?
Mhm. So when I joined Verdant at first, didn't know much about HVAC other than what I learned in school. But as I grew from an inside sales rep to an outside sales rep at Verdant, I realized that there's huge potential for us. And we already had been partnering with a lot of these large HVAC manufacturers. So I figured, this is a good opportunity for me to get into the HVAC space, learn more about the trade, learn more about the other partners involved. And ultimately, it just ended up happening kind of naturally. So.
You've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now. What's been your biggest surprise coming into this industry?
My biggest surprise on the HVAC industry is it's definitely the smallest large industry out there in the world. Everybody knows everybody in it. It's every AHR you end up seeing everyone together all in one roof, and it really puts things in perspective for you in terms of, wow, this is really a small industry with I don't know how many millions of people involved in it at this point. So yeah, it's a fairly small industry. That's definitely been the biggest kind of shocker to me.
No, and really, I kind of discovered the same thing the first time I went to an AHR. It actually took me a long time to go to one. I didn't go to my first one until 2019. So,
Mm-hmm.
even before that, I was like, oh, it's a pretty big small industry. But going and participating in Atlanta at that point, I think I only had like 4 hours, and you saw nothing.
Yeah.
And then it wasn't for another 4 years until I was actually in the podcast pavilion that I went back to a show, which just happened to be Atlanta again.
Mm-hmm.
And from the size of the show in 2019 to 2023, I was like, oh, holy crap.
Yeah.
It's growing exponentially with leaps and bounds. And the difference in technology you see every time you go is always fascinating. It's also, we've seen more change in the last 10 years than we saw in the previous 50. It really
Mm-hmm.
feels like, and I feel like that clip of progression is going to continue to ramp forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is stuff like what you're doing is kind of at the forefront of how a lot of those things are changing. So let's talk a little bit about Verdant and understanding the control side and where you are. And you are a strategic account executive. So
Mm-hmm.
what is your day to day actually look like in your position with your company?
So, great question. So, my role is very much focused on the new construction space. So, Verdant, the way we started off was really in the retrofit world. our technology is really designed for light commercial applications, so hospitality, multifamily, senior housing, student living, etc. And we did an excellent job at retrofitting existing buildings with our technology. But when our department got formed, and myself and a couple of my colleagues, we decided to try and go ahead and attack the new construction space. So my day-to-day really focuses on those partnerships involved in the world of new construction. So specifically with a lot of our OEMs, HVAC manufacturers, as well as our plan and spec rep network and a few other key accounts we have, where I support them on a day-to-day basis, speak to their engineers, speak to their contractors, talk to them about our technology. And we're in quite a unique position in this space, because thermostats and controls aren't really at the top of everyone's lists when it comes to a new building being built. So we try to make everyone's lives as easy as possible and as simple as possible by also, supporting them, making sure they understand the technology, the basics of it, without going into too much depth. And at the same time, make sure that whatever the requirements are for this project and whatever the end user also wants, we tick all those boxes as well. So,
well, and obviously when you're Verdant by Copeland, people hear the Copeland name and they immediately assume compressors. But, Verdant is truly and strictly controls and energy management. So from how you started in retrofit, what is your end goal now, really looking at new construction and everything else? What's your primary goal in terms of, is it just to make sure everything is functioning as smoothly as possible? Is it so that you can control certain spaces over different spaces? Kind of break down what the real mission is for your division so the audience really understands what you're doing on a day-to-day basis.
no, absolutely. And my mission really is just to make sure that, specifically in the hospitality industry, the hotel brands' requirements are being met in terms of the technology. So I'm taking feedback directly from the field and from our partners, bringing it back to our engineering team and our product team, making sure that whatever the hotel brands are looking for and whatever the customers are looking for, we're able to develop those features, implement them, and make sure they work properly. And at the same time, on the HVAC side, my role is to also make sure that, people often are willing to invest a great amount of money in an HVAC unit. And, if you want to be able to control it properly and make sure it's running properly, you need that extra level of energy management, and you need that extra level of a communicating thermostat with the unit. So my job is to also go out there, find more of these partnerships, talk to these HVAC manufacturers, and make sure that if someone buys one of their units and uses our product or thermostat along with it, that it does what it's supposed to do and operates more efficiently than just a standard relay 7-wire thermostat.
You brought up hotels. Also, we talked about multifamily, student housing, some senior living when we spoke before. What are some of your, most common challenges that those buildings are facing that you are trying to solve?
Yeah. So the most common challenge that we're trying to solve is really the load on the energy grid and just the energy consumption of buildings as a whole. So our technology relies on a built-in PIR sensor that scans for occupancy and essentially sets back the HVAC when no one's in the room to save energy and money. The biggest thing we've seen and the biggest complaint we've seen from our customers has been that their energy bills are too high, and with regulations being passed all across the country, like Local Law 97, Title 24 in California, people are looking for solutions that they could easily implement in their existing buildings to reduce their energy consumption. And that's where Verdant comes in, and we make sure that the product's good, the technology's good, but at the same time that we're actually providing them with proven results and proven reduction in their energy bills at the end of every month.
This episode of the HVAC R&D podcast is brought to you by Diversitech, the one-stop source for contractors who want to simplify every job. Whether you're stocking up on install supplies, service parts, thermostats, controls, or digging into the legendary tool line from Hillmore, Diversitech has you covered. They're not just a parts supplier. They help build solutions for HVAC pros, offering pads, condensate management gear, electrical parts, replacement components, premium tools that make install, service calls, and maintenance faster, cleaner, and more professional. Partnering with Diversitech means fewer trips back to the supply house, more time on the job, and less chance of callbacks because you're using the right gear from the start. If you want to work smarter, stay stocked up, and show up for every job ready, Diversitech is a trade pro's best friend.
And
Now, trade crew, depending on when you're hearing this, you may have already seen, or soon you will see, the president of Mon Hummel have me literally jump on one of their filters during the AHR Expo. And let me tell you, rhinos don't just jump on anything. The thin line Ultramax frameless HVAC mini pleat filter is built for commercial and industrial applications where medium to high efficiency filtration truly matters. It delivers MERV 13 performance with low pressure drop to help maximize energy savings, plus high dust holding capacity for extended service life. And there's no traditional plastic, metal, or cardboard frame, reducing environmental impact while still delivering serious durability. If it can handle a rhino, it can handle your job site. Learn more through the Mon Hummel link in the HVAC R&D Vendor Hub today. Well, and when you say it sets back, so let me ask an example question. Let's say I go to the hotel room and the first thing I do is I set it down to 68 because when I got in there, it was 76. So how far back is the setback, and can you truly prove that setting it back and letting it not run and it get up to 76 is saving enough energy to compensate for when I get back in the room and turn it back down to 68?
Yeah, so great question. Essentially, the setback is all customizable to the needs of each specific property. So they can pick and choose really how far back they set back when the room is unoccupied. But I guess kind of let me ask you this. When you go to a hotel room, if you travel for work and you stay at a hotel, will you turn off the HVAC before you leave that room?
Nope.
Most people don't.
Because I want it to maintain for when I come back.
Absolutely. So we at Verdant really try to find that balance of reducing that wasted energy of that room being maintained at 68 for 8+ hours a day while you're out doing whatever you're doing, but at the same time never compromising any type of the guest comfort. So we don't want the guests to come back to a really cold room or a really hot room and they complain to the front desk and they get the room reimbursed. We really make sure that with the technology and the settings we put in place, each hotel is able to really tweak and customize the settings to their needs and their customers' needs so that they maximize their energy savings without compromising any guest comfort whatsoever. So we can sometimes, put the setback limit as low as 64. I've seen hotels go down to 60 sometimes. It's really, each one has their own kind of taste and what they like to do. So it's all customizable.
Well, and I'm sure it varies by, the climate they're in and everything else as well, depending if you're heating or cooling season, and that would
Mhm.
make the most sense. How do you position yourself differently for traditional control systems? Outside of this, we have all the other traditional BAS systems and things of that nature. How do you position yourself differently from just a standard building automation system?
So we like to consider ourselves in the quote unquote mini BMS or mini BAS or BAS light space. We offer some features of a BAS system where the owner is able to monitor everything remotely, and we are not a Wi-Fi thermostat. We operate on our own proprietary sub-gigahertz protocol, so we don't rely on the building-wide Wi-Fi, and the owner has full visibility and full control over our system remotely with limited features without the cost of a full-blown BAS system. So that's kind of where we position ourselves on that front. And also we offer all of that at no subscription fees whatsoever. So we like to stay true to our commitment in offering the end users an ROI on the system. If you buy a system that's designed to reduce your energy bills, but will charge you a monthly fee to use it, kind of defeats the purpose. So we like to charge everything up front and there's no subscription or renewable fees.
How long is life expectancy for built-in, or not your built-in, but we'll call it your proprietary network control? Does it
Mhm.
have a life expectancy you've got to change, your network or anything like that?
So far, I mean, I've been at Verdant for 5 years and I haven't had to replace any of my old projects or upgrade them so far. So I'd say probably close to the 10-year mark.
Nice.
But yeah, no, so far it's we don't have a set life expectancy. The network is very robust. We operate on a wireless mesh network, so there's no need for repeaters on every floor and all that stuff. And the notifications, the alerts, they tell you everything you need to know about the status of the network. So definitely longer than 5 years.
Nice. Well, and when you're working with OEMs, reps, engineers, and contractors, how does that full ecosystem from spec it to get it put in Where do you guys really start first getting involved? Do you want to be involved with the engineer that's specing everything so that you can make sure it's designed initially? Or are you guys looking at projects that are already designed and you're presenting yourself to take the place of what they wanted initially?
So all of the above. Our team is kind of a jack of all trades. We have people who focus specifically on engineers, and they're reaching out to MEPs all across the country to get our product specified from the get-go. And like I said earlier, we understand that controls isn't always the top priority for a building being built. So we try to make their lives as easy as possible within half an hour, show the capabilities of our system, and get specified. We rely a lot on our plant and spec reps for that as well. And at the same time, having that relationship directly with most GCs and mechanical contractors out there in the market, where they can reach out to us and they know that if there's a spec for a hotel, they know that they can rely on the Verdant team to support and make sure that all the boxes are ticked.
What's something that contractors really would often misunderstand about controls or these type of systems if they've not used them in the past?
Contractors oftentimes, I think, they'll struggle to understand maybe how simple this product really is to install and to commission. I know oftentimes in the world of thermostats, people have a fear that they're going to buy a system and they're going to completely underestimate how many hours it's going to take them to commission the system and get it up and running. But with our system, it's not really a concern. We found that we're able to kind of provide them with all the tools they need and the support they need up front to make sure that ultimately whatever they estimate in terms of labor hours is met, and we make sure that there's no hiccups in the process.
Well, and for a contractor right now that's listening that may be mostly residential, some like commercial, why should they care about where this technology is going, and why should they want to know and understand how it could potentially affect them in the future?
So they should care about where this technology is going is because of where the direction of the market as a whole is going. Hotel brands um, are now mandating this kind of technology across the board. The days of building a hotel with a standard 7-wire thermostat are long past us at this point. This is no longer a nice to have luxury product, but a need to have in most hotel spaces. So it's important for contractors to understand the basics of the technology so that when they go in a room and they're going to start commissioning the system, to understand a little bit what a setback is, what kind of communication we're having with the HVAC unit, so that when they go and install it, everything goes to plan. So that's kind of where the market's going, and the importance of just keeping up with the basics of the technology.
Right now, what do you see as the biggest opportunity? Is it still new construction, or are you starting to see more and more retrofit opportunity as well?
We see it as both, and there's always more hotel rooms being built across North America, and even now we're expanding globally. So that's an opportunity for us to get in as early as possible and meet with the engineers and the owners and talk to them about the technology. But there's still, I don't know how many rooms out there in North America that have a traditional 7-wire thermostat, and that's a lot of wasted energy for the end users without them realizing it. And because our solution is so easily plug and play into existing buildings, easily retrofittable, it allows these owners to be able to reduce their energy consumption without necessarily having to take on a huge project or a full renovation. So there's still plenty of opportunity in both of those spaces for us.
You kind of jumped on me a little bit going to talking about your mesh network, but
Mhm.
really because of that, it makes retrofit such a great opportunity for you guys because you're not having to rely on built-in Wi-Fi. You're not having to rely on rerunning wires all throughout the complex. You can
Mhm.
set it up to where basically all you're doing is you're installing what operates and drives your mesh network, and then guys are just going and changing thermostats.
That's exactly it. You just plug a router, a gateway into the server room of the building, and then kind of like a Christmas tree, you look at our platform and all the thermostats light up green, meaning everything's communicating. They get to monitor everything and control everything remotely without having to run wires at all in the entire system.
How does remote monitoring and diagnostics change the game for these building owners as well as for the contractors that are servicing it? And second part of that question, do the contractors that have the maintenance agreement, do they have the ability to access what's going on with this system when they're off site to be able to flag something going on?
So I'm going to answer the second part of your question first, and the answer is yes. So the contractors and really whoever the owner wants us to give access to, can just log into our platform and they'll see the sites that they have access to. But the main advantage of owners having visibility and control over the entire building really comes down to preventative maintenance and ultimately knowing what's wrong in their units or even with the HVAC unit without having to rely on someone else telling them. So in the hospitality space, people are not going to go above and beyond and make sure that I mean, maybe HVAC technicians will, but most people will not go above and beyond to make sure that the unit's running properly and will notify the front desk if they feel like something's wrong. That's where our system can come in and help predict if we see that a unit maybe is struggling a little bit more to keep up with the demands of our controls, to send that alert, let them know, hey, room 212, for example, is struggling to keep up, go have a look at it. And on the multifamily side of things, even if they're not using occupancy detection, a lot of these end customers are buying our system just for the remote monitoring capabilities, where they no longer have to rely on their tenants or the students to let them know if something's wrong. At the end of the day, it's their HVAC
I
unit.
see that.
Yeah, it's their HVAC unit. They spent a lot of money to get everything in place. And if a student's not really careful with what they're doing in the room and doesn't really track or monitor the temperature, that's where our system can come in and really notify the end customer. So a lot of asset protection interest happening there to be able to, just preventative maintenance. And as we continue to develop, we're looking at also implementing some error codes with some of the HVAC manufacturers we work on to be available online. So really just a one-stop shop for all your needs and everything you're going to look for in terms of preventative maintenance.
Trade crew, I'd like to introduce you to my friends over at LiveSwitch. If you haven't heard of them, they're developing a platform specifically for trades contractors and service professionals like yourselves. So picture this. Mrs. Jones calls the office, her furnace is making some kind of strange sound. Normally, you would just have to roll the truck and go see what's going on, but instead with LiveSwitch, you can jump on a video call right then and there with no app with Mrs. Jones. You can see things from her perspective on a fully functional video call. You can take screenshots, you can record, and you can deliver a different experience that no other contractor is giving their homeowners right now. If you're worried about it working with stuff you're already using, you know what? It integrates perfectly into Jobber, Service Titan, House Call Pro, any of the stuff that you guys are already using. It makes it a seamless transition to add this new tool to your arsenal. Go to hvacrnd.com, visit the vendor hub, set up your LiveSwitch demo today. You can also click the link down in the description below, or you can find the link to the demo in my bio. Thanks everybody for listening to the show. Check out LiveSwitch. I promise you it is an app for you. It gives you an ability to do something completely different for homeowners that no one else is doing right now. You guys won't be disappointed. Go schedule your demo today. All right, IAQ folks, this one's for the contractors and the trade crew that are looking to level up their indoor air quality installs and make life easier in the process. The new Honeywell Home Whole Home Dehumidifier is a high-performance IAQ system designed with input from HVAC partners like yourselves. The revolutionary tri-directional outlet design with horizontal, vertical, and right-angle options speeds up installation and integrates seamlessly. To learn more about the Honeywell Home Whole Home Dehumidifier, head over to the HVAC R&D Vendor Hub and click the Residio Honeywell Home link for more details. Well, and you answered my next question when it came to, is there a way for them to see any kind of error code or anything like that that's going on with the system? So, and I can truly see, student housing, senior living, definitely, hotels, definitely. The multifamily one, I think, is probably where people I could see being the most frustrated with having that in their system. But everything outside of that makes perfect sense. What would you say is, and this is not trying to go down the negative road, but it's just a question, what's the biggest failure point you see with installs that are involving smart controls like this?
So in terms of installation itself, I don't think we see many failure points. It's a fairly simple installation that happens. I think the biggest challenge we've seen has been people using the system properly. So the system will save you a ton of energy and a ton of money if used properly. But if for whatever reason you get on the system and you disconnect the gateway, and especially in the hospitality industry where we know how high the turnover rate is with staff, if the message is not being transmitted properly, it could go down the other path fairly quickly where units are running not as efficiently as they should be and actually running more than they should be because the way the settings are configured. Or some thermostats go offline and then you lose that whole visibility and remote monitoring capabilities. And because no one's aware of the system or no one's aware on how to actually action these items, that's where we see the biggest challenge. And then obviously the customers will come to us and they say the system's not working as expected, and we can pinpoint right away what the issue is. But yeah, that training and knowledge on our system itself by the end user has been definitely our biggest kind of challenge we've seen so far.
And talking about training, do you guys have, a setup where contractors can come to your facility and do a hands-on training session and really learn and understand how the controls work? And what does that process look like for them?
Yeah, so we've got a bunch of support videos available online on YouTube. So anyone installing on system can watch a 10-minute video and they'll be able to do it. On top of that, we offer free support, free training for all of the end customers, whether that's the contractor who's looking to learn how to install a thermostat or the end user who's had his entire staff leave and wants to retrain the new one on how the platform works. We offer free training for the lifetime of the system. So they can call us up as many times as they want. Our tech support team is awesome, based here in Montreal as well. These guys are really know the product through and through, and they respond incredibly quickly. So we understand that, especially for an HVAC contractor, everything is due yesterday, and we make sure that we action everything as quickly as possibly can and make sure that all their questions are answered.
Well, and talking about the data that this is storing and learning over years and years, how is data analytics shaping the next generation of HVAC controls and systems?
So the plenty of data that we end up collecting, we've found a way to utilize it as efficiently and as best to our ability. So first of all, because we have an idea or because we track how many minutes of heating and cooling we call for in general, let's say we're talking about a standard 24-volt system, we can then actually translate those minutes of heating and cooling to a rough estimate in terms of kilowatts and then eventually to dollar amounts to help the end user actually track on our platform how they're doing in terms of ROI. So when they log in and they're looking at their alerts and their notifications, they can actually click on a performance tab and they get to see how they're tracking on a month by month basis in terms of their rough estimate of HVAC energy consumption and runtime minutes. So maybe using that data, they can then go back and adjust a few more settings to say, I want to save a little bit more energy. I don't have any guest complaints from the system. I could be a little bit more aggressive with my setbacks and with my settings. And on the other hand, it's built into our system that we understand that each HVAC unit is completely different. We understand that an east-facing room and a west-facing room at different times of the day are going to get heated and cooled at a completely different rate. And we take that into account. So our thermostats are constantly learning the slew rates of each unit we control and making sure we can adapt and adjust the setbacks accordingly, ultimately to make sure that there's no guest complaints or any guest discomfort. So we'll adjust our setbacks by a few degrees if we know that that unit specifically will struggle to get back to the guest's set point when they do come back to the room. So the uses of data are kind of infinite in our world, and we're continuously trying to find new ways and better ways to implement it in our processes.
Are there any kinds of limitations with existing types of equipment that would make it difficult to do a retrofit application? Because I would assume, if something already has a wired thermostat on the wall, then pretty much, it's easily possible. But what about
Mhm.
applications where you have, package terminal heat pumps, package terminal ACs, or things that have built-in controls on their device themselves and aren't wired on the wall?
Yeah. So those ones are a little bit trickier. Those ones, if there's no 24-volt control board on the unit, there's not much we can do about it. So we tend to try to avoid these scenarios. The other challenges we've seen is often high voltage systems that are quite old. So again, we've had to adapt, come up with fan coil adapters and high voltage adapters just to make sure that though we don't miss out on that opportunity and we're still able to go into these projects and provide a solution that the end customer is going to be able to use. The other biggest challenge we've seen in retrofit is just not knowing what's behind that closed wall. If we're replacing a wired thermostat where the wires are all damaged, we don't necessarily know what's going on there and we don't want to necessarily take that risk also. Oftentimes in retrofit, we have to relocate the thermostat for somewhere better for occupancy detection. So, if you imagine a traditional hotel room in that little hallway when you walk in, if the thermostat's right there, it's not going to pick up occupancy properly. So we've come up with a wireless solution as well for our system. So you have a wireless control card that will get plugged into the HVAC unit inside the closet or inside the PTAC, for example. And then you put batteries up and you get to relocate the thermostat anywhere you want, somewhere ideal for occupancy detection. So that also eliminates the risk of having damaged wires behind the wall and really not knowing what was set up there 15, 20 years ago.
Well, and I'm assuming if you're using battery controlled ones, you're going to have a notification saying, hey, you're down to 10% battery. Come and fix me before we have problems.
Absolutely, yeah. We knew that that'd be a concern for customers, so we made sure to get ahead of
Dang, I just forgot my question I was going to ask you. Oh,
that.
so where does distribution or manufacturers reps come into play with you guys? Do you sell specifically to the hotel chain and they go and get a contractor? Do you sell specifically to the contractor, or are you going, is your path to market you have a manufacturer's rep that represents your product that then represents it to distribution and that's how it gets to the contractor?
So yes, all of the above. The way Verdant goes to market is quite unique. We work directly with owners, with contractors, with distributors, with reps, all of the above. We've gotten really no limitations, but also, as you can imagine, that creates some conflict. So we've got a pretty robust system in place to make sure that we're able to protect the party that actually does the work to get us into a project, and we make sure that we play fair with everyone. So we haven't had too bad of an experience so far. It's proven to be actually quite successful where we're able to protect our partners. But yeah, it really depends on a project by project basis. And we're fully transparent with all of our partners. They know exactly how it is. And a lot of time we actually hear feedback from the partners saying that we're the only manufacturer that offers this level of transparency and information to them on kind of what we're doing in this project, how we got involved in this project, and how we're planning to go to market for this project. So
Nice.
mhm.
What's one thing that people may think they understand about smart controls, but they completely misunderstand?
That's a great question. I think it's got to be the level of customization available. So this is something that whenever we're on a demo or we're showcasing our front end platform to really anyone, you can see their eyes kind of light up whenever we get onto the settings and down to the customization that's available at their disposal. And the fact that they could do all of that remotely, people sometimes don't believe us when we're showing them that you could change the settings on 700 thermostats at the click of a button. And quite deep settings we're talking about here. So that's one thing that people often, I guess, would say underestimate the capabilities and the settings available for them to customize.
How far do you think we are from true self adjusting control systems that learn and adapt on their own without the majority of our input?
Ooh, that's a great question. You mean like without even the guest or anyone setting the temperature, just to
Like,
kind of
yep,
know right
it
when?
just it knows where it wants to be and it lives in that space and it takes care of it.
I don't know how practical that would be in hospitality. I know there's some people that are quite picky about the temperature and they could tell
That's
the
true.
difference between 66 and 67, but uh, honestly, probably not as far off as you think we are. If it's just a matter of kind of implementing artificial intelligence at this point into the system and, you know, learning the habits of each kind of guest, or if you're talking multifamily, each tenant, and adjusting accordingly. So it's definitely not as far as we think it is.
Well, and I think sample size, hotels probably the worst example, but
Yeah.
student housing where you at least have someone in there a semester at a time, tenants in multifamily where it's got sample size to really learn. I could see that. Um, but I think another one is I think definitely common areas. So,
Mhm.
hallways, conference rooms, things like that. I think you could see it implemented quicker in a hotel setting than anywhere else.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's actually probably the best place to start with this kind of trial, where if you can get a hold of the habits, the patterns, and start identifying, what time of the day is this room occupied? What time of the day is it unoccupied? How hot does it get? How cold does it get? And especially if we start implementing, utilizing outside air temperature readings, definitely I could see us going down that path.
Trade crew, here's a quick one for you as we head into spring. Indoor air quality is about to be a big conversation with your customers, and this is one of the easiest ways to step into it. The Fresh Air UV APCO X Ultra from Diversitech installs directly inside the ductwork, so every time your HVAC system runs, it's actively treating the air in the home. It uses UVC light combined with activated carbon technology to help reduce odors, mold, bacteria, viruses, and dreaded VOCs. So you're not just moving air anymore, you're helping improve it. And as a bonus, the UVC light also helps keep the coil cleaner, which supports system efficiency over time. Now, from a contractor standpoint, this is a high value add-on. It solves real homeowner problems like smells and allergies, adds to your ticket, and doesn't add a ton of labor. Plus, it's low maintenance with a 3-year lamp and a built-in indicator that tells the homeowner when it's time to call you back. That's repeat business built in. If you want to learn how to actually turn IAQ into a revenue system, go check out the Ramblin' Rhino column on the HVAC R&D Substack and check out the article titled Beyond the Filter. So remember, Fresh Air UV APCO X Ultra from Diversitech. What's up, trade crew? You've heard the buzz, you've seen the press gang at every single AHR. Contractors across the country are ditching their torches for RLS press fittings, and they're not looking back. Why? Because RLS lets you finish faster, safer, and cleaner. From rooftops to mechanical rooms, crawl spaces, and attics, it's a press and go solution that's leak tested, UL recognized, and proudly made in America. Make the switch to RLS and take the heat out of your installs, literally. RLS, rapid locking system, press forward and press on. Well, and there could probably be one of the offices I work in. We've got, the centralized network for all the conference rooms so that it knows when a conference room is booked. So there's probably something you guys could have a control system where it's a thermostat, but it's also hooked into knowing that it's going to be occupied. And that way it can adjust based on that. I would think that would work.
Well, you mentioned that the hospitality industry is probably the wrong example, but that's already being done in the hospitality
Well,
industry.
but I'm saying like for conference rooms and stuff, I think it makes perfect sense.
Of course.
Individual hotel rooms probably obviously very tough.
Yeah, but even in the hotel room space, when someone checks in at the front desk through the property management system, it will send a signal over to our thermostats to start
Okay.
preheating and pre-cooling the room for them. And,
Okay.
as we continue to develop these partnership with the brands, eventually, if someone has a specific temperature setting they like, that could all be built in eventually. And, we'd be able to customize that specific to each guest. So, yeah.
How important is that, collaboration between contractor, manufacturer, engineer, and yourselves to actually make this work in the field?
It's incredibly important making sure that everyone's on the same page and everyone's aware of this kind of technology is incredibly crucial to the success of a project for us. We're seeing a shift in mentality from the industry and from the field where controls and thermostats oftentimes used to be an afterthought, but we're seeing people more and more pay attention to it, getting on calls way before any equipment gets delivered to the site to make sure that they know what's coming, how to install it, how to commission it. So definitely we're seeing that shift happen, and we're doing our best to continuously adapt to the needs of the field as well. If we see that contractors are often reaching out for a very specific type of asset or a very specific type of document, we make sure to get on that right away. So yeah.
And where do you see the HVAC industry heading the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to controls and connectivity?
I think it's going to be a lot more relying on communicating thermostats. So the traditional relay thermostats are always going to be around, and there's always going to be a market for them. There's always going to be a need for them. That's never going to change. But as we get into these incredibly efficient HVAC units, I'm seeing them pop up every year at ASHRAE, with wild claims in terms of EAR and SEER. To make sure that that's actually happening, you need a very intelligent controller up on that wall, feeding data back to your HVAC unit, feeding the temperature, feeding the RH value, just to make sure that the unit performs exactly as expected. So I definitely think there will be a huge spike in terms of need for communicating thermostats. And the more data we feed the unit, the better the unit can perform and the better it will operate and the better the guest experience will be.
Well, and that's where that OEM manufacturer relationship is really going to become much, much more important, because if you're having to design a stat that can communicate with what their system is, they most of the time they're not going to want to give up that proprietary protocol. So that's going to be a really tough sell a lot of different times. And I think that may be where I think that's probably where you guys may butt the most heads over the next 5 to 10 years of trying to make this grow with what's hitting the market.
Absolutely. So far, I'll say we did find a way around that. We understand how possessive it is, and we've worked with third parties to help kind of make that communication and that transition smoother. But at the same time, we're doing this because I think HVAC manufacturers want to focus on making HVAC, and we are the controls specialist, and that's where we come in as a let's be a partner rather than just have you guys as a client of ours. Let us understand what your needs are, and let us develop this along with your engineering team together and build out a partnership that way where we make sure that all parties get what they want and that you know they feel comfortable opening up that protocol to us and they understand the need to open up that protocol to us.
For contractors that are wanting to stay relevant with how this is changing, and maybe they've not done a lot of self education on controls, what should they start learning first in order to really grasp where we're headed?
I think it's important for them to get a pulse of the specific requirements for each project and kind of who does what in terms of the thermostat space as a whole. If we speak about the hospitality industry specifically, to make sure that all the boxes are ticked, it's important for them to understand well, what those boxes are in the first place. So Marriott has completely different requirements than Hilton and IHG, and just to have a rough overview of, I'm working on this Marriott project. I know that they're going to need XYZ integrations, and to make sure that you work with a thermostat that ticks those boxes. Now, on the multifamily side of things, I think it's a little bit different. I think it's important, again, to understand the capabilities of the system and to be able to communicate that properly to the engineer and to the end user. So that when they go in and they propose this kind of technology and they recommend this kind of system, that all parties are on the same page in terms of what they're getting.
And you're still relatively new in your HVAC career. I can say that because I've done this since I was 5. Um, but you're working on a very big picture system already, and you're seeing this from a much higher view than a lot of people get to see it when they're first getting into HVAC. So, what advice would you give someone that's just now getting into this trade today?
Mhm. There's a quite a famous saying around our office of, and it's going to sound a bit cheesy, but winners find solutions. And I think that as you try to get into the HVAC and in the control spaces, there's always going to be roadblocks. There's always going to be reasons why you can't do something. And when you're really committed to finding a way to make sure that what you have in your head and what you have in your mind actually happens, that there's always a way to do it. There's always another approach you can take. There's always um, another view you could look at it from. So I think that's definitely helped me quite a bit over the last 5 years, where we've gotten told, no, you can't do that on many different occasions, or that's not the right way to look at it. And we've had to quickly adapt, pivot, re strategize, and kind of find a way to make it happen.
You've got the mic for this. So, at the end of our conversation, what do you really want the listeners and the trade crew to take away from this conversation when they think about all of the information they're absorbing from what we've talked about the last 40 something minutes?
I think the key takeaway is that the world of controls is rapidly changing. Controls 10 years ago are not the same as controls from 5 years ago. They definitely are not the same as controls from today. And it's not going to be the same in 5 years. So I think the key takeaway is it's probably not as complicated as you think. It's getting efficient. It's getting more advanced. It's getting more complex, but people oftentimes have that stigma of this is very complicated, this is very difficult to learn and to adapt and to adjust to. And that's just not the case. And that there's plenty of information and support available out there for whatever project it is that you're working on and whatever your needs are for that project.
Well, and Rami, this has been a fantastic conversation. and talking about some resources and different things moving forward. If a contractor or manufacturer, distributor, anyone that's listening to the show wants to know more and potentially even go do some self-education on Verdant, where's the best places for them to go and connect with your company and your knowledge and your information? And also, where's the best place that they want to connect with you specifically?
Absolutely. So our website's amazing, verdant.copeland.com. You could book a call with us there. There's plenty of technical resources, all of our spec sheets, cut sheets, everything's available online. The marketing team has done a fantastic job at setting it up so that it's easy to use. And for me personally, well, you can just reach out to me on LinkedIn, Rami Noueir, or you can go through our website as well. I'd be happy to kind of continue this conversation.
Well, I appreciate your time, buddy. This has been very insightful for me because, I've done some stuff with controls, but I've really not sold a lot of controls. So this has been really interesting for me to get perspective on kind of where the market is and where it's going. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. Please reach out to me if you need more information. Reach out to Rami if you want more information. I will also, in the newish, I used to call it the Vendor Hub. It's now called the Resource Hub on HVACRD.com. I will put a link in there to some of either the YouTube videos or some of that information just to kind of help you have resources if you'd like to find it. So thank you for listening, everybody. Hope you have a great week. I'll see you later. Peace. And that's another one in the books, Trade Crew. If this episode brought you value, make sure you like, follow, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening on. Share this episode with your friends, your coworkers, your install team, your sales reps, and anyone else in the trades that need to hear it. And if you've got a voice, a story, or a lesson that the trades need to hear, this show is built for you. Head over to hvacrd.com, use the show questionnaire link, or hit the links at any of our social bios, and make sure to get me your information so I can get you booked in for an episode of the show. Because if you're from the trades and you've got something worth saying, HVAC R&D is your platform. Until next time, keep evolving, keep serving, and keep the conversation going. Collaboration over competition always wins, so ramble on, Trade Crew.